I was 10 when Grandma came to live with us. It had been 6 months since Granddad passed, and the house felt too big, too empty. The floors creaked in lonely rhythm, and the walls seemed to sigh in every corner. I think that's why my parents agreed to let her stay, despite Mum's protests, her frown heavy and voice sharp. I didn't protest. Not once. Grandma was loud, full of life, her laugh bouncing off the walls in ways that made my small chest feel warm. She always carried sweets in her pockets, slipping them to me when Mum wasn't looking. She defended me, no questions asked, when trouble came knocking at school, but it was her stories I loved most. She told of long ago days during the war, of seaside adventures with friends, of ordinary life made magical and dangerous all at once. But her scary stories, those were something else. She had a way of bringing them alive. Turning the lights down so the glow from the night sky was the only illumination. Shuffling close, close enough to see every wrinkle, smell the faint sweetness of her breath. Her eyes, sharp and blue, could pierce right through me. That first week, I realized some stories didn't belong to her imagination. They belonged to something else. Something that had found its way into our home. It was raining that night, the sound of water hammering the roof like a warning. Mum had gone to bed early, Dad watching the news downstairs, and I lay beneath the covers, heart quickening with anticipation. Grandma shuffled into my room, robe swishing against the carpet, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. She sat on the edge of my bed, sighing softly. "You've never asked why I only take baths," she said, and I laughed lightly. "Because you like candles?" "That's part of it," she said. Then she leaned in closer. Her eyes darkened. "Mostly it's because of the showers." I frowned. "Showers?" "Yes," she whispered. "The shower isn't safe for people like me." "People like you?" "People who see things," she said softly, voice like smoke curling around my ears. "Things that wait in the drops, behind the steam. That's why I take baths. That's why I'm careful." My stomach twisted. "What happens if you're not careful?" Her gaze pierced me. "It notices you," she said. 10 seconds with your eyes closed. That's all it takes. And then it comes." "Who?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Longfingers," she said. The name was a chill I could feel crawling along my spine. She explained slowly, in words that seemed too soft for the horror they carried. A creature drawn to heat, or perhaps a spirit slipping through the fog, waiting for those who linger too long with their eyes shut. "You'll feel it first," she said. A shift in the air, like someone's breathing right behind the glass. And then she paused, lips tight. The tapping. Slow, deliberate counting. "And if you open your eyes." I don't need to tell you what happens then. Her hand found mine, squeezing. "Promise me," she said, "if you hear that sound, you will never open your eyes." I nodded, swallowing hard. The shadows seemed to lean closer as she rose and turned off the lamp. The darkness was alive. That night, I dreamed of fog and long fingers scraping along glass, counting the seconds of my fear. When I woke, my pillow was wet, though I didn't remember crying. It didn't take long for the story to seep into my nights. The first time I heard it, I was standing in the bathroom, shampoo running down my face, counting silently with my eyes shut. 5, 6, 7. The seconds stretched like taffy, each one heavier than the last. Then it came, soft, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. A rhythm that belonged to someone or something outside the glass. My heart hammered, fingers trembling as I scrubbed at the suds. I wanted to open my eyes, to see nothing was there, but Grandma's voice whispered in my mind, "Never open your eyes." I froze, every nerve raw. The air seemed to thicken, hot steam curling around me like hands I couldn't see. Tap, tap, tap. It moved closer, measured, precise. Not random. Not accidental. I counted again, 5, 6, 7, 8, until I couldn't bear it and cracked one eye open just a fraction. Nothing. The relief was immediate but fleeting. Behind the faint fog on the glass, I swore I saw a shadow curl and stretch. A hand, impossibly long, tapping, counting, waiting. From that night on, showers became a battlefield of seconds, pressure, and fear. Every drop of water that hit my skin carried the weight of those long fingers, unseen, patient, always waiting for me to falter. It wasn't long before Mum noticed the change. She came in one night after I cried out in my sleep. Soft footsteps against the carpet. Her hands were warm on my shoulders, shaking me gently. "What's wrong, darling?" Everything spilled out then, like a dam breaking. I told her about Grandma, about the baths, about Mr. Longfingers, and the tapping on the glass. My voice trembled, tears streaming down my cheeks. Mum's eyes went wide. Not at me, but at the story. Her jaw tightened, lips pressed into a thin line, and I could hear the sharp hiss of her breath through the wall as she spoke to Dad in the other room. "You know what your mother's done now, don't you?" Her voice floated clearly, sharp and angry, slicing through the night. "She's told him there's a monster that'll get him if he closes his eyes in the shower." The poor boy's terrified. "Simon, you better say something to her tomorrow, first thing. Or I will." The words sank into me, a chill deeper than any rainstorm outside. That night, Grandma came to my room, quiet, solemn. She perched at the end of my bed, blue eyes wide and sad. No stories, no lessons, just a look that weighed heavier than any ghost. "You know I'd never let anything bad happen to you, don't you?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Then don't worry," she said, and even then, I could tell it wasn't entirely reassuring. Her eyes flicked toward the window, moonlight catching the wrinkles on her face. But maybe I went too far this time. Then she smiled, small and careful. "I'll scare him off for you, sweetheart. Mr. Longfingers won't bother you if I have to face him." I nodded again, hoping the reassurance was real. It wasn't. Not entirely. From the moment I woke the next morning, the dread had already taken root. The house was quiet, too quiet, as if it was holding its breath along with me. I could hear the drip of the kitchen faucet, the hum of the fridge, the faint creak of the floorboards upstairs, but there was another sound too. A subtle, persistent pressure at the back of my mind, like someone leaning just out of sight. My eyes refused to close. Even the soft flutter of eyelids made me uneasy, and I shook my head, trying to cast away the memory of Grandma's story. The bathroom door loomed ahead, pale tiles reflecting the gray light of dawn. The cold metal handle felt heavier than it had any right to be. I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed to run, to escape, to bury myself under the covers, but my curiosity, my foolish, stubborn 10-year-old courage, made me reach out. The shower was on. The water beat down in a steady rhythm, the sound masking the quiet house, but not the quiet in my chest. Steam curled around the edges of the cubicle, thick and suffocating, and I squinted through it, heart pounding. I had to see. I had to know. I had to make sure nothing had slipped through the thin veil between stories and reality. 5 seconds is fine. Grandma's voice whispered in my mind. 10 is just about okay. But any longer, the pressure behind my closed eyes was immediate, almost tangible, like cold fingers tracing along my spine. I counted aloud, low and shaky. 1, 2, 3. The water soaked my pajamas, warm against the early morning chill, yet I felt a deeper heat crawling beneath my skin, suffocating, pressing, a presence that made me tremble. Tap, tap, tap. I froze, water pounding, hair slicked against my skull. The sound was soft, deliberate, unnervingly slow, echoing in the glass. It was there. It couldn't be anything else. My hand reached instinctively to rub my eyes, desperate, but I remembered Grandma's warning. Never open your eyes. I stayed still, counting silently, every muscle trembling. Tap, tap, tap. The sound moved in a rhythm that was unnervingly human and impossibly wrong at the same time. Fingers. Long, impossibly long. Scraping against the glass. Counting. Watching. Waiting. I tried to move, tried to scrub the shampoo faster, as if the motion could banish it, and it almost seemed to help. Almost. But I couldn't escape the feeling, the weight behind my eyelids, the sensation that I wasn't alone. 5 seconds, 6, 7. I could barely breathe, water streaming into my ears, eyes threatening to shut, but I forced them open a sliver, just enough to see. The glass was fogged. The tapping continued. Faint, but there. And I swear I saw the shadow of a hand stretch across it, impossibly long, curling against the mist, waiting for me to falter. My heart leapt into my throat, a raw, desperate panic that made my stomach knot. I finished rinsing as fast as I could, eyes wide open, counting each second like a lifeline, and when I finally stepped out, soaked and trembling, I pressed my back against the cool tile wall of the bathroom, shivering, trying to convince myself it had all been imagination, but even then, I could still hear it. A faint tap, 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 lingering in the echoes of the bathroom, a reminder that Mr. Longfingers was patient, and he waited for the moment I slipped. By nightfall, the fear had grown roots deep inside me. I barely slept. The shadows of the house seemed alive, stretching toward me with every flicker of moonlight through the curtains. My pillow was wet from tears I didn't remember crying, and I flinched at every sound, the slightest creak sending me scrambling upright, pulse racing, heart hammering against my ribs. It was Mum who noticed first. She came in, soft footsteps brushing against the carpet, and touched my shoulder. "Darling, what's wrong?" Her voice was gentle, but something in it made my stomach twist. I could feel the tension in her hands, the worry that had been building unnoticed, everything spilled out. The baths, the showers, the tapping, the shadowy hand against the glass. I told her about Grandma, about Mr. Longfingers, the pressure, the waiting, the fear that no one could see. My words tumbled over each other, ragged and panicked, my small body trembling as the story poured out. Mum's face shifted slowly. First confusion, then disbelief, then sharp, undeniable anger, not at me, but at Grandma. Her eyes narrowed, lips pressed into a thin, hard line, and I could hear her whispering to Dad through the wall. The tension was palpable, an electric hum of parental fury and disbelief. "You know what your mother's done now, don't you?" Her words were sharp, slicing through the night. "She's told him there's a monster that'll get him if he closes his eyes in the shower." The poor boy's terrified. Simon, you better say something to her tomorrow, first thing. Or I will. I pressed myself against the covers, trembling. The fear I had felt alone in the bathroom now spread through the room like smoke, suffocating, uncontrollable. The next night, Grandma returned. No stories, no words of caution. Just her blue eyes, wide and sad, perched at the end of my bed. The moonlight caught the wrinkles on her face, making them appear like rivers of shadow. She looked down at me, silent for a long moment. You know I'd never let anything bad happen to you, don't you? She asked softly. I nodded. You know I wouldn't let you come to any harm? I nodded again. Her eyes flicked to the window, reflecting moonlight and something I couldn't name. The things I tell you are meant to help, to protect, to toughen you, she said. Then a pause. But maybe I went too far this time. Her smile was small, careful, but I could tell it didn't reach her eyes. I'll scare him off for you, sweetheart, she added finally, almost to herself. Mr. Longfingers won't come around if I have to face him. I nodded, trying to believe her words, trying to cling to the safety she promised. But I knew, even then, that safety was fragile. That morning began like any other, or at least it should have. The gray light of dawn leaked through the curtains, casting pale, elongated shadows across my bedroom floor. I woke with a start, heart hammering, sweat prickling my scalp, feeling the remnants of a nightmare cling to my chest like wet cloth. My pillow was damp with tears, my blanket twisted into knots beneath me, and then I heard it, the sound of water rushing. Steady, insistent, filling the house with a low roar. My stomach dropped. The bathroom. I didn't think. I didn't pause. I bolted out of bed, bare feet slapping against the cold floorboards, each step echoing down the silent hallway. My hands flew to the door handle, trembling, but instinctively, it wasn't locked. I pushed, and the door swung inward with a soft groan. Steam rose like smoke from the shower, curling around the edges of the cubicle, hiding everything inside. The heat struck me immediately, heavy and suffocating, and the scent of soap and shampoo, the familiar fragrance of Grandma's presence, mixed with something else, a tang of copper, something sharp and raw that set my stomach roiling. I couldn't move, frozen in place. Watching the fog shift and swirl, forming shapes I didn't want to recognize. And then I saw her. Grandma was lying on the floor of the shower, naked, water hammering down over her, streaming off her wrinkled skin. Her eyes were wide, bulging, unseeing, fixed on nothing. One hand was pressed against her chest, curled like a bird's wing, the other stretched toward the glass, flailing, leaving finger marks in the steam. Marks I knew I shouldn't be seeing. Marks that seemed impossibly long, stretched beyond the bounds of human fingers. My throat closed. My hands pressed against the tiles to steady myself, but the sight was burned into my mind. The heat of the water, the blur of steam, the surreal, impossible stretch of her fingers against the glass. It was too much, too immediate, too raw. The world spun around me, chaos erupting as Dad arrived, pushing me gently aside, his voice shouting my name. Panic rising. Mum followed, screaming, her face a mask of horror and disbelief. The house seemed to tilt, the air thick with shouting, the shrill cry of my own panic mingling with theirs. I wanted to scream, to curl up, to disappear into the floorboards, but I couldn't look away. The finger marks, still warm in the fog, seemed to pulse, moving like they had a life of their own. And then the tapping began. Tap, 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 faint at first, as if the glass remembered, as if it carried the memory of something that had waited all night. Even then, as paramedics arrived and the world spun into a blur of sirens and voices, I could see it. The marks weren't just on the inside of the glass. No, they were on the outside too. They told me it was a heart attack. That Grandma had passed quietly, quickly, without pain. Dad's voice was low, almost gentle, when he explained it later. She was old. She wouldn't have suffered. But I knew better. Even at 10, I knew the thing that had killed her wasn't the heart attack. It was something she had tried to protect me from. Something she had warned me about, taught me rules for, and scared me into obeying. Mr. Longfingers wasn't just a story. He was real. I had seen the evidence pressed into the steamed glass. Evidence that no adult would ever believe. Even after the paramedics left, after the chaos of that morning faded into the dull ache of loss, I crept back to the bathroom. The water had long since drained, the tiles cold and slick, the shower head dripping quietly. But the marks remained. Long, impossible finger streaks, etched in a pattern that seemed almost purposeful, almost deliberate, like a signature left behind in the fog. I pressed my hand against the glass, feeling the faint ridges of the finger marks, tracing the impossibly long shapes that should not exist. I knew, deep in my bones, that she hadn't just been telling me a story. She had been warning me, preparing me, protecting me, and that protection had a cost. The house felt different after that. Showers became a terror I couldn't endure. I wouldn't close my eyes in them, not for a second longer than necessary. My parents tried to coax me into normalcy, laughed at my stubbornness, called it fear, trauma, imagination. But I knew the truth. The taps, the long fingers, the pressure behind closed eyelids, they hadn't been in my imagination. Even now, years later, I still avoid showers. I take baths. I check the glass. I count the seconds carefully, just in case. And I know if I were to look too closely, if I were to ignore the rules, I might see it. The shadow behind the glass. The hand stretching impossibly, patiently, waiting. No one else would ever believe me. Not my wife. Not my children. Not the doctors. Not the paramedics. And perhaps that's for the best. Some truths are too heavy to share. Some monsters are meant to be faced only in silence, in fear, in the seconds between your heartbeat and your breath. But I remember. Always, and I obey the rules. The house never felt the same again. I avoided the upstairs bathroom entirely, even though it was my own. The smell of damp, the faint scent of soap, the memory of heat and steam, all of it made my stomach twist in knots. Mom and Dad tried to coax me into normalcy, tried to say it was just fear, a childish fixation, but I knew better. My senses had been trained, my instincts sharpened that morning. I had seen the impossible. I had felt the pressure of something watching, waiting, patient. My parents buried Grandma in the garden behind the house, beneath the large oak tree she had loved. I helped them, though my hands trembled and my eyes stayed a careful distance from the fresh earth. I remembered the way she had smiled at me in the moonlight, her blue eyes filled with sorrow and secret knowledge. I remembered the finger marks, impossibly long, etched into the glass. I remembered the tapping. Even now, I could feel it lingering in the edges of my vision, a shadow that didn't belong. School continued, as if nothing had changed, but I was different. I jumped at shadows, flinched at every sudden noise, my sleep plagued by nightmares of hands that reached through walls, that pressed against glass and wood, that tapped, tap, tapped, in patterns too slow, too deliberate to be random. I tried baths at first, as Grandma had insisted. Warm water, candles, the faint scent of boiled sweets. They helped a little, a temporary balm, but there was always a whisper, a faint tug at the corners of my mind, reminding me that safety was conditional, fragile, and sometimes just before sleep. I would imagine those impossibly long fingers pressing against the glass, waiting for the moment I faltered. Waiting for the second I dared to close my eyes too long. Mum asked me about showers once, months later, trying to coax me into normality. "It's just water, darling," she said, her voice light but firm. "There's nothing to be afraid of." I nodded, pretended, smiled, but I knew better. The fear wasn't just in my head. The house had absorbed it. The air had memorized it. And the tapping, that faint, deliberate rhythm, had a memory of its own, even when no one else could hear it. Years later, I still remember the morning I found her. I remember the heat of the water, the fog curling thick around the cubicle, the impossible stretch of her fingers against the glass. I remember my small, desperate hands pressing against the tiles, trembling, trying to understand. I remember the tap, 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 echoing in my ears long after the water stopped. I never took showers after that. Not once. Baths only, and always with the door locked, the water steady, my eyes careful, counting the seconds like a lifeline. I have a family of my own now. My wife and kids humor me when I insist on baths. They tease me, call me paranoid, indulge the strange habits of a man still haunted by a childhood memory. They don't understand. They can't. And I don't tell them. Some truths are too heavy, some fears too tangible, and I can't risk it because I know the truth. Grandma wasn't exaggerating. Mr. Longfingers is real. Not a story, not a game, not a dream. And the finger marks, the marks I saw that day, they weren't just on the inside of the glass. They were on the outside too. I checked. I always check. The paramedics had taken her body downstairs, and the house had fallen silent again. But I had crept back as quietly as I could, my small hands trembling. And there they were. The marks etched through the steam, impossible in length, stretching toward me even as I stared, impossibly deliberate, impossibly patient. No one would believe me. No one could. And perhaps that was for the best, because some things are meant to be obeyed, not questioned. Some monsters don't exist for stories. They exist for rules, for counting. For the seconds you dare to close your eyes. I have never taken a shower since I was 10. I have never closed my eyes in one for longer than the rules allow, and I never, ever forget to check the glass, because if I do, I know what waits on the other side. The fingers, the tapping, the waiting, and I know that Grandma, even in death, is still trying to protect me. But the thing with the long fingers doesn't care for protection. It only waits, and sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet and the water runs. I swear I can hear it. Tap, tap, tap.